I turn back to the stag, who is coming over that icy ground, taking his majestic time as the shadows grow longer with nightfall. "Is it helping, Yanni?" I ask urgently. "Probably," he says, shifting his shoulder. "You can thank me later," Zara says, "once we've sorted this guy out." She bares her teeth in a growl, standing up and glaring at the stag. "Zara? He's making me cross," she says. "Look at him, prancing along as if he owns the place after everything he's done." She turns to me. "Aren't you angry, Stella?" "Sad." "Be sad later," she says. "Angry now." Yanni and I stare at her, but all she does is shrug. "Isn't it time?" she says. "I'd say so," says Yanni, looking over at the place where his parents stand shoulder to shoulder, battling shadow men with bolts and chains of fire. Rory turns from the melee and sees us. She charges over. The shadows thicken her wake. They cling tight to her knight's dark flanks, and they spool her hooves as she thunders towards us. And then Peg is here, rushing up to my shoulder, and a tiny glowing lizard. "Oh, Peg," I whisper, as Rory halts, sending up a flurry of ice crystals. "You know how to do it. We practiced in the garden," Peg says. "Don't you remember?" "That was practice? I thought it was an emergency." "It was both," he says, somehow managing to sound smug even in the midst of all the chaos. "And now you are come into your power, you'll be magnificent." "She is a child, foolish imp," snaps Rory, leaning towards us. "What do you propose she do? I never brought into that ridiculous legend. It means nothing on the battlefield. She is a child, barely versed into our world." "I have been to the palace," I say. "I fought through the shadows and the deepest part of the forest, and I faced my father, and he didn't know me. Or if he did, it was only for a moment. He is lost, but I am not." I remember Tea Cake's words and let them ring true. I'm right here and I want to help. "She can do it," says Yanni, and his voice sends a rush of hope through me as he stands by my side. And then Zara is here too, and if Yanni is tired and fading, then she has only just begun. Her eyes spark. She looks ready to take on the whole of Winterspell by herself. Rory snorts. "Go on then. Show me what magic you have." "I don't think this lantern is going to do much against him," I whisper to Yanni as the stag raises his head and bellows through the clearing. "It's not the flipping lantern," he says, shaking his head. "It's never the stuff that matters, Stella. It's what you put into it. The lantern is just an extension of your hand, of your power. The lantern isn't sending shadows away. You are. Just do it bigger." "Send him away, Stella," Zara says, tucking her arm through mine. Yanni links my arm on the other side, a look of determination on his face, and something clicks deep inside me, something that was so lonely, and even today, standing before my father, felt so out of place. I'm not out of place. I am not alone. I am Faye. I am all that he is and more, because I have friends and he stands alone in a flurry of nothing but his own fear. I breathe long and slow and let it gather, noticing that the clearing has become still. Every Fae creature is staring from me to the stag. Fierce Eloan is shouting something, but I cannot hear the words through the snarling chaos. The stag stands before me, his breath steaming, antlers held high, and he roars, and I take a step towards him, and my bare feet don't make a sound on the ground. I clench my fists and I roar right back at him, and it reverberates, a boom of sound that never came from a human mouth. I pour all my hurt in there and all my fear until my chest burns, until my back aches. The acorn at my neck flashes hot, and then there is a sharp twist of pain and a lift beneath my ribs. My heart is thudding like a thunderstorm. I look at the shadow of my father, who does not acknowledge me even now. Get away from here, I say in a small voice that somehow rings through the clearing as the moon comes into view, crescent thin and dazzling bright. He lowers his head as if preparing to charge, and I step towards him again, and I start to run, but the ground falls away beneath my feet as my wings, that Nan's glamour hid from me all these years, spread and catch the air, and Winterspell lights up around me. Every tree and leaf, every bright face, and every single fae form is caught in a silver burst of light, until the clearing is a dazzle of outstretched, beating wings. They sweep out from the backs of all the cursed young fairies and sprites in a rainbow torch of magic, and the shadows cannot stand beneath such light. They don't just rush to shelter. They don't yammer or growl or fight. They simply stretch to tatters and disappear. The willow trees lower their heads. The rowans spread their limbs. The fae stamp their feet, and the shadow of the stag is massive. He is all of them in one place, just one creature with no more or less power than any other. Go back to him, I shout. The clearing rings with it, and my heart thunders as I stare at him. He looks at me then, right in the eye, and finally he nods. He turns, making his way back to the palace that is no longer hidden. You did it! Growls Yanni. My, whispers Rory, look at that. Zara slips her hand into mine. You cleared the shadows. I sent the stag away. I sent him. I shiver, the cold finding its way to my bones. The air is crisp, everything more stark than it was moments ago, before the shadows fled. Will it kill him, Zara? No, says Peg, the familiar curve of his bird claws digging into my shoulder. You used the power of your family, and your own, more importantly. You sent his shadow back to him. His face looms before mine, his amber eyes glowing, a massive grin on his imp face.